In the restoration of the college, the team that was working on all the architectural design was Eric Arthur as the consulting architect and Michael Roberts of Wilson, Newton, Roberts, and Duncan. Mike was a very accomplished architect, but one who had a great feeling for historic architecture. And he and Eric Arthur formed a wonderful partnership where they each respected each other very well. They each deferred to the other's expertise, and they did a wonderful job of leading clients in the direction that they ought to go to preserve the historic importance of the buildings. One of the things that I recall best, it was in the early days of my time as principal, when we were working on this portion of the restoration. It was in the third phase of the restoration. And Eric had this notion that the woodwork needed to be a good bit lighter. And I had the view, it was informed by some exaggerated sense of the notion of purity and that kind of thing, I think, that what we needed was dark woodwork because that was the way it had originally been finished. It had been finished, it was pine, it's all, of course, Canadian pine, but it had been finished to look like walnut so that it had a much more grand kind of feel to it. And Eric, I think quite rightly, said dark is not good, we need light. And the person who actually ended up making the decision was Mike Roberts. And he found exactly the right tone, at least as I now think, exactly the right tone between Eric's wish for light and my wish for dark. And so it was ultimately Mike that made the decision. And I think we can also attribute to Mike the very handsome inverted lights that you see running down this corridor, lights that give an indirect lighting to the whole area, but at the same time also shine upwards onto the very handsome ceiling. The woodwork in the ceiling is, of course, 1890s woodwork. We're sure that we know that it's 1890s because all of this burned in the fire. But another interesting aspect of this portion of the building is that during the restoration in the 1970s, the floors, all the second floors, all the first floors, had to be fireproofed. And so this ceiling that you see above me was actually physically lowered by something like 7 or 8 inches, and then concrete floors were poured above it in order to create the fireproofing that was necessary. So this is a good place to see the successive phases of the building. The original construction of the building in the 1850s, still here, visible today, the 1890s rebuilding of the college, and the 1970s restoration of the college to not only make it look up to date, but to bring it actually physically up to date to meet fire and regulations and electrical needs and all of those kinds of things.